Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clara Centeno, and I work at the European Commission's Joint Research Centre. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today presenting you our results of a research project we have on well-being in digital education, in particular presenting the emerging practices and the recommendations. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting us at this occasion. I apologize for not being with you in Lisbon today. I hope this recording will contribute to the forum. At the Joint Research Center, we make science at the service of EU policies. Our purpose is to provide independent, evidence-based knowledge and science, supporting European Union policies to have a positive impact on society. At the RGRC, we have made published some recent work in relation with well-being. In 2022, we published an umbrella review of social media use and adolescents' mental health and well-being. Last year, we published a policy brief on loneliness and social media use in the EU. And earlier this year, we have published a report on minors' health and social media and a policy brief on social media use and adolescents' mental health in the EU. We hope these reports could be of interest to the audience too. And moving on to the study on well-being in digital education, in line with our mission, the purpose of the study has been to support the implementation of the Council conclusions on supporting well-being in digital education, published in 2022, that invited the Commission to support research on the impact of the use of digital technologies on learners and educators' well-being across the EU, as well as to design a model for efficient practices aimed at improving well-being in digital learning ecosystems. This project also aims to contribute to the implementation of a digital education action plan currently under review. Its implementation has been a collaboration between the Joint Research Centre Digital Economy Unit and DG EAC Education and Culture Digital Education Unit. It has been implemented with the support of Visionary Analytics through a 17-month project starting in July 23 until last December in 24. The purpose of the project has been first to frame the concept of well-being in this context, to provide evidence on the effect of digital technologies on the well-being of the school community at large. And here we have been working with learners, educators, school leaders, and parents or carers, as well as policymakers and edtech providers. Another purpose has been to provide recommendations on how to support well-being in digital education and provide practical instruments for member states and for schools to pursue the well-being of the school community, such as a model of emerging practices and a list of optional questions for selfie. The overview of the study has been, we started with a literature review to work on the concept of well-being in digital education. Then we did a review of policies as well as consulted edtech providers. We also consulted the school community at large on the impact of digital technologies. Then we did some work on emerging practices, starting with their definition, identification of existing practices, and analysis of a set of them, and then the development of a model to understand how these practices are functioning. We also have worked on the development of selfie items, and finally did a synthesis of the results and developed some recommendations. I would like to mention that this is still work in progress. The results of the project are under review. We had a stakeholder validation workshop last May 20th, and the overall project and the input from stakeholders will contribute to develop a science for policy report, which will be published in the second half of this year. Today, we'll be presenting the results of this task, our work on emerging practices, and some initial recommendations. First of all, I would like to present you the working definition we have been used for well-being in digital education, which is based on the definition from the Council conclusions on supporting well-being in digital education, and also has been adapted following findings from the literature review and some interviews. This definition suggests that well-being in digital education is the physical, cognitive, social, and psychological states and their interconnected development of learners and educators brought by their engagement in digital education. It considers wider teaching, learning, and socioeconomic and cultural background and policy context, as well as the role of other whole school actors. Such well-being aims to maximize the opportunities as well as minimize the risks brought by digital education. It considers 6 categories of well-being: psychological, cognitive, social, and physical well-being, but also considers the effects of digital divide and safety online. So, presenting our work on emerging practices, we define them as recent or ongoing practices that are still evolving either in their terms of their development and or their impact on well-being. We have identified existing practices through a literature review using websites of networks, initiatives, projects, and repositories, and identified 23 practices. These practices are developed across a broad geographical scope. They include 4 national practices, 19 of EU level and international scope, and the overall set of practices incorporate 23 member states involved. The most targeted education levels of the practices is lower secondary education, and the least targeted level is IVET. The most targeted well-being categories of these 23 practices are safety, cognitive, and social well-being, and the least targeted physical and the digital divide. The most targeted school actors are educators and learners, and the least targeted edtech providers. The next stage has been to analysis of these practices. 11 practices were selected for in-depth analysis, taking into account data availability as well as ensuring a balanced coverage in terms of geographical scope, education levels, well-being categories, and school actors. We carried out online interviews with representatives from 8 practices. I'm going to present in here the list of the 23 practices identified, and in bold you can see those who have been selected for interviews, in-depth analysis and interviews. Based on the analysis, we have come up with this model of emerging practices promoting well-being in digital education. This model is an adaptable framework that structures a set of key guiding principles for the design and implementation of practices. The key guiding principles are organized under 6 core dimensions, and each of the core dimensions has a set of key guiding principles. I will go with you together. These 6 core dimensions are the hexagon in this slide, which you cannot read, but I'm going to go with you through them. One of the core dimensions is enhancing the well-being of school communities, which focuses on actions supporting well-being, like, for example, a balanced use of technologies, promoting physical activity, and fostering critical thinking. Another core dimension is focusing on pedagogical approaches, highlighting how different pedagogical approaches can be used to support well-being, like, for example, group work in classrooms. Another category is fostering a whole school approach, which emphasizes that well-being is a shared responsibility among all actors like learners, educators, parents, school leaders, and external partners. It also promotes collaboration between these actors to overall to build a whole school culture promoting well-being. Another core dimension is the role of digital technology in enhancing well-being, and this dimension includes principles for selecting technologies that prioritize well-being and integrate privacy and accessibility features into the technology design. It encourages collaboration partnerships to ensure that the tools meet the evolving needs of teachers and learners, and highlights the importance of access. This is another core dimension which suggests to address both enablers and barriers for well-being in digital education, as well as the final dimension on future opportunities, which provides guidance for practices to remain adaptable over time to the evolving needs of digital needs of the learners and teachers. And based on this analysis as well of the overall research project, we are coming up with some initial recommendations which are being still under reflection, but I would like to share them with you, which include integrating well-being in digital education as a core and cross-cutting principle in schools curricula, as well as in all pedagogical approaches and activities. They also include fostering an intentional and purposeful approach to the design, the selection, and the use of digital technologies. They suggest also incorporating risk mitigation strategies to address prolonged digital technology use and promote opportunities to disconnect. Recommendations include also enhancing the development of digital competence of school actors, improving the accessibility and usability of digital technologies to address the digital divide effects, and finally, to promote the whole school approach to well-being and digital education through coherent school policies and responsible communication. With that, have finalized my presentation. I thank you for your attention and wish you a very successful forum.